Hey gang, Professor Feeser here. I provide education solutions to large groups and organizations. If you're looking for a learning pathway for your team or enterprise, feel free to reach out. My contact info is at the end of the video. In today's lesson, we're going to study Ansible Automation Platform, Event Driven Ansible. Now, this is kind of the second part to at least a two-part series on this topic. The first part's already out, and it's called AAP Event Driven Ansible Rulebook. I would recommend you watch that first before watching this one. Ultimately, EDA is just a wrapper. It's a web framework around rulebook. So it's important to sort of have an idea of what rulebook is before you start studying it up here. All right, this video ultimately, to make this work, has two parts. There is the controller section, which has to do with running a playbook, and there's the event-driven Ansible section. Both of those are going to draw from this repository. This is a public-facing, real simple repository you can check out. If you do, give me a star, hit fork for yourself if you like. The playbook is just notify. Variables incoming passed to rulebook. There is a debug event that tries to print out incoming, which is defined as this Ansible EDA event. This ultimately in the rulebook, we're going to listen for a webhook on port 5000. So anything related to that webhook should define incoming. Pass from rulebook trigger reason, which we try to print out in the second task down here. Pass from rulebook is just an extra variable that's defined in the rulebook, but let's go check that out. Rulebook's in the root, and it's the topmost one. A simple rulebook. Right there, we're listening for a webhook that's an HTTP post. All IP addresses port 5000. The condition is, does the HTTP post have JSON with a key that says command equal to restart? If it does, we're going to run a job template specifically named EDA Student 01, where the organization is student org. Okay. Job args, extra vars, trigger reason. So these extra variables we are passing to AAP Controller, to the playbook ultimately. Trigger reason is going to be defined by event payload reason or no reason provided. So the event payload reason is going to be trigger reason. That'll be another key, just like command was, down in the JSON of the post we send. Okay, back to the root there. The inventory won't affect us, so let's just see how that was all set up. The first click is projects, and you can see I have a project here called AAP EDA. You want to see how it's set up. Simple naming, belongs to student org. Git is the source control. There's my URL. Update revision on launch is just something I like to check. Make sure you always have the latest project. Very cool. Next, into templates. There's EDA Student 01. That's the match with the name in the rulebook. They have to match. Into edit template. Lots of pointers to the project. Demo inventory just defines localhost. Playbook is playbook notify. That's the playbook we looked at just a moment ago. And otherwise, nothing else is going on. So it's just a normal job template that we'd set up. And if you're not familiar with projects or job templates, again, I have videos on that go watch those and then come back to this video. At that point, we're ready to start setting up EDA to work with Automation Controller. But here's the interesting thing. I keep describing EDA as a separate domain. You have to build a credential to be able to log into Automation Controller with. So very much down in organizations, I have student org. I have administrator called EDA student org. That's the name of a user. If I go look at users, there's an EDA student org normal user. So you create a user, make it a normal user. You then go into organizations, select the organization, and appoint it an admin. That lets it do anything across the organization. That would not be best practice in production. But in lab, you're playing around, this would be fine. Ultimately, you could leave it a normal user and apply a role to it, which would let it execute a single playbook within Automation Controller. I have videos on that as well. Multi-tenancy, I have a video posted on. All right, so once you have that created in credentials, the only real gotcha is the credential type is called Red Hat Automation Platform. Ansible Automation Platform. There's the username, there's the password to log in. 2.5 and above, make sure you put /API/controller at the end. If you don't do that, and they tell you about that in this tiny little bubble, it won't log in either. There's a lot of little gotchas. Okay, next, we'd go to projects. So this is a separate project from controller. You effectively just set up another project. So AAP EDA, that's what matters, is the source control URL. That's where it's actually going to pull the rulebooks from, not playbooks. Okay. Save that. And then rulebook activations, we could stop it. Just cool. So a rulebook, when you hit rulebook activations and create a new one, again, you just like you're building a job template, you source from a project, you pick a rulebook from that project, put it in an organization. There's the credential that we just spoke of. Everything else is default. I mean, you give it a name that's descriptive, and that's about it. That switch, make sure it actually starts up. So we'll save rulebook. It needs a decision environment. A decision environment is just like an execution environment, but for running rulebooks. There should be one in EDA. And if there's not, you can create decision environment, and Red Hat has a default DE you can get off of their site. All right, so in rulebook activations, it's still starting. Ultimately, in history, there it's running. You can click on it, and that's it actually working. So I'm going to show this to you. It will kind of work. And then I'm going to show you how to make it really work, okay? I already have a curl command set up, which will make our job template run. In fact, this is going to be boring. This isn't going to tell us anything. Let's go back to controller. Let's go to jobs. Job 17 was the last, or 18 actually, was the last one to run. So here we have a curl post. That's the IP address and port. We want to include application JSON. There's the command we were talking about, and there's the reason that we were talking about. So command restart, that's the trigger. And then also reason manual test trigger, we're just passing that value through. So I'm going to hit enter on that. Pretty boring. But you can see suddenly 19 and 20 are actually running. Now here's why I said it's kind of going to work, because you're probably going, hey, Zach, that's really working. That looks great. Well, sort of. Look at this. Tasks show all the event data. There's no message variable not defined. Our data isn't being transferred through, and that's because when we set up the template, you have to check extra variables prompt on launch. Even though there's no extra variables down here, that prompt on launch will allow EDA to pass values through to the actual playbook. Let's see if I'm correct about that. We'll run it again. And we should see, there we go, a new sync and a new playbook run. And what we're expecting now is, oh my goodness, data came through, right? The webhook data was passed through. We're able to harvest that. And it looks like manual test trigger. Yeah, that's absolutely what we passed in, manual test trigger. So if we wanted to, that could even be cupcake. Restart, you got to pass in restart. That's what actually causes the playbook to execute. If that's not there, it's just a webhook that actually doesn't cause anything to run. So there you go. We got a cupcake that time. And, we could show a negative test. We could change the command to coffee. This is a negative test. We're not going to get a job to run, because EDA isn't about just creating webhooks that react to anything. They're about creating a listener that will react to a webhook that you want it to actually react to. Wow, gang, that was awesome. Hopefully you understood all of those components. If you didn't, I would say actually watch all the videos in the AAP series up to this point. You really do need to understand projects, and you need to understand job templates. Like I said, studying that rulebook video would be a good idea before hitting EDA. But as far as the clicks you have to make this work, my repository's out there, and I just showed you it does work. So just be more stubborn than any failures you get. You can always post down in the comments if something's not working, and I can try to walk you through a solution. Gang, hit like, hit subscribe. I don't want to miss you on the next episode of Code with Feeser.